Yes, thanks for the invitation, Audrey. My name is Sheila O'Hara, and don't shoot the messenger. I work for IBM, an American company, but I work at IBM France. I've been with them now for 25 years, and I can safely say, though, that I can proudly speak about our actions in the world of AI. You mentioned about, what is a responsible leader, and some of the adjectives that we use for AI within IBM is trusted, transparent, targeted, and open. So it is a topic that we have addressed in that fashion for a number of years. Myself, I work actually with solutions that we have in IBM Technology Group to enable enterprises to measure and reduce their environmental impact, and also a number of topics around climate change, measuring climate impacts on enterprises' infrastructure, measuring, let's say, the impacts that could happen, the risks they incur, and how to mitigate those risks. So I agree also that the use of AI is immense in what we can do in a positive way, but of course we have to work on doing that in a way that is the least impactful for the environment, and I can talk about that after.
Sure.
Like actually, wait up.
No, as long as we have some topics.
So I studied computer science, and then I thought I can be an engineer, and I studied scientific journalism. The first 7 years of my life I spent in a group of professional newspapers about environment and sustainable development in the 2000s, so early in the way, and late in the other way, of course. And then, after several iterations, I went to consulting, innovation consulting with tech and other aspects. I had some great engagements where I could find my environment past back, like with NG and energy transition, but also sometimes I had to work for oil and gas extraction, very interesting, but I didn't want to specialize in that, and that other variations. So after a while I started saying, I want to choose my topics, and that's how I got given the challenge of, I use the word challenging that you used, of reinventing the offerings and activity of a tech company to incorporate sustainability. So my job today, for the last 2 years, has been at Publicis Sapient to try to slowly orient the boat of a big tech, of a big digital transformation company towards to help reinvent what it could be in the light of sustainability.
Great. And I think that the question to both of you on the Frugal AI part, we know that, for instance, a request on ChatGPT or query consumes 10 times more electricity than just a Google search. We know that with DeepSeek now, the small language model as well has played a new role. How do you conceive and how do you advise your clients on how frugal we can be with AI? Is probably starting with not using AI, but how, I mean,
absolutely,
with sobriety, but how do you manage?
So I think there is an aspect that we don't hear enough about is so many people have jumped on the generative AI bandwagon, and when we talk about AI today, it seems to be that we're only talking about generative AI, which is only one type of AI that is useful. So absolutely, the first step to take is, look at the problem and look at what is the right solution for that problem, which could be traditional AI, if I want to use that term, not a generative AI that can, do the job. When I'm talking about geospatial analytics or, climate, a lot of the climate analysis we're doing, that's not generative AI. It's AI models specific to those tasks that are not as consuming. From our perspective, when we talk about the models that we've developed, they are a much smaller size, and we from the beginning took the strategy to build enterprise, what we call enterprise models. So models that would be targeted to a particular task that will include enterprise data. So I think we can safely say today that probably all of the data that's public in the world is included in some large language model, but we have estimated that only maybe 1% of enterprise data is actually included in models today. So our strategy is to say we will build smaller models, more targeted models, models that can run on any cloud or any infrastructure, and we also use methodologies that allow us to train those models in a less consuming way. So this mixture of experts architecture that we're kind of hearing more about now with DeepSeek, but it's something that we've been deploying for some time now. So there are ways to reduce that impact. The other area where we're investing a lot of research is around chips and new types of we call them brain-inspired chips. So trying to reduce, let's say, the need of sending information between processors and memory, and we've had considerable success with that. And there's new infrastructure coming out, pretty much every year. So I think, people have to make that, let's say, consideration that it's not just performance, it's not just cost, but it is also environmental impact that needs to be taken into account. And I think if we try to keep those, let's say, metrics in mind, we make better decisions. But we just hope everybody.
It's a challenge.
It is a challenge. Absolutely, it is an everyday challenge. Yeah.
Indeed, you asked how do you help your clients make decisions. I think as a consultant, the core of what I bring is helping make decisions. And for innovation, sometimes we imagine innovation as bubbling and creativity, that's great, but there's also the go, no-go phase. And typically, for money-related decisions for projects, you do a business case. What are the costs? What are the revenues? And we felt we were not equipped to do that for the externality, but that we are striving to re-internalize, that is the carbon footprint and then all other impacts of software. And we really benchmarked what was there, and there were many good tools, but like for one, I usually not covering everything, and for instance, your cloud providers give you figures for their RAM with their calculations that are not always and not often transparent. Then there are tools that will focus on making your IT move forward towards less impact. There are tools that will give you an index on your website. But we thought if we can't say, okay, but how much carbon for my project, we can't make a decision. And we really, I joined a data scientist who had started by just plain Excel file to say okay, there's the carbon footprint tool from Adam, but as a data scientist in a big company, how can I know the footprint of my work, depending on how I go to work, if I eat meat at the canteen, etc. And his conclusion was the biggest impact is the projects I do for my clients, whether they're eco-conceived and what they are used for. And that led him to say, okay, I'll change my Excel file. It won't be for the footprint of one consultant, but for the footprint of the app we are developing for a client. After a while, Excel was not enough, and it became a Python model. And I fully supported a few aspects that we wanted it to cover everything. Of course, we don't know everything, but if you want precise figures everywhere, then you have angle mort in French, then you just don't look where you have no data. And it's moving so fast that typically new applications, you have no data. So we prefer to have hypothesis that when we can source from other data projects, Ecologics is a great open source library to have data on all the models from the main AI providers, for instance. When we don't have such good data, we take basic figures from them, and you can always put your own figures if you have more information. So covering everything, not working in index, because index is good if you already have something and you just want to better it, but it's not enough to compare doing and not doing. It's not enough to compare one way to do with another, or not if they are fully different and they don't fit the same index. And we wanted it to work even when you haven't started, so it can't be just measured. It has to, like when you do a business case, you don't want to wait until you launch the product to do the business case of it and know if it was worth it. So it was quite some work, but we decided to open source it because we thought transparency of everything. You can't, if you really want it to be a decision tool, everything has to be auditable. And we also wanted it to have real units at the end, kilowatt hour and CO2 kilograms, and to make it fully transparent and also to benefit everyone, but also to be able to compare, to say, why did I get this measure, etc. We fully open sourced it, and that was really our big initial investment, to be able to advise our clients with full transparency. Yeah, absolutely. And at the moment, because it's a bit complex, but we presented it, so we're developing an interface to make it visual, to really represent, like someone said last week, a mind map, but it's actually more reality map of the usage pattern, like where will it be used, by how many people, how fast is the population that will use it growing, what kind of network and of devices they use, then the kind of user journey step, what will your service do or what does it do today, and then the infrastructure that it needs to do this and that. And so you really have the map of how usage requires infrastructure, and the graphic interface helps a lot. It's very new, it will be open source as well. We showed it at Journée de l'éco-design, Journée de l'éco-conception numérique last week, and one participant said, it's complex. I have a hard time but I love it because it showed me how complex it is under the hood, actually, that you can't model the impact of the software with 3 variables or 5 variables. You can make many hypotheses on those you don't know, but at least it shows all the variables that come into the result. And just to finish, so you mentioned figures about how many more tons of carbon AI requests are as compared to Google, and people love these kind of figures. We are looking for them all the time. Usually it's a research paper, but that date back from 2 years, of course, time for the paper to have its full cycle, and it changes so fast that, and it so depends on so many conditions as well.
And I think it's important, though, that we do uncover this complexity in some shape or form, because I think the general public as well needs to kind of understand the impact of everything they're doing. So we often have school kids coming into IBM to discover our enterprise and the world of IT, and I do a whole section on IA Responsable, and they're like, never heard of that before. And I now mention all the time about ChatGPT being, about, let's say, large language models being much more energy consuming. Again, nothing that they've heard of, but just even explaining to them what's the cloud. They hear these words and there's no concept they can look behind it. I think it's our job as well to make a better job at explaining that. And I think this week, I don't know whether it was TF1 or France 2, they had this whole program. I thought it was too complicated for people. They had like a light in a room, and I was they're again making this out to be some kind of magic, and it's not concrete enough. And I think these kind of actions are great to make it more concrete and to tie it back to reality. These are not magical.
To also show that digital does not mean immaterial.
Yes,
Just
that's
means
it,
the
exactly.
materiality is hidden somewhere else. The cloud is not really a cloud, it's just other way.
Exactly.
That's unfortunately the case. We'll have, I guess, just to skip a bit on the AI part for the climate, because we still have the power are the teams. So, but if you can,
one word on this. I really something that was, I think, broadcast in March 2023 is the methodology for avoided emissions. And I think when we have an AI for climate, which is great, and probably not Gen AI sometimes, but I think it's very great as well to be able to have this methodology to say AI for climate, how much do you spare us in a way, and let's compare to your cost.
Who did this methodology, if you want to share, because I'm not sure everyone knows the avoided emissions.
There are others, but the one I'm referring to is Carbon 4 started it. It's called the Net Zero Initiative, and it's been validated. It's been World Business, WBCSD, World Business Sustainability Council, something.
World Business Council for Sustainable Development.
Thank you. Toolkit went into it, and it's really a methodology to say determine the baseline without your intervention, determine the levers by which your intervention will change something.
Not everyone can have access to it, so if you want to dive on this, it's also good to know that.
And so I like the idea to compare the benefits of the AI intervention to its cost.
Yeah.